In this installment, we follow Turtles who need to travel back in time to ancient Japan to save April, who was sent back in time after buying an ancient scepter at a flea market, and find themselves in the middle of an ancient battle between a rebellion of villagers and the Lord Noriagi. Now, meanwhile, back in the present, we see the return of Casey Jones, who is played by Elias Cortez once again. He makes his return to the role, and Casey is there to look after Splinter due to the time travel rules. For every person who travels back to the past, they're replaced in the future. So the Turtles were replaced by 4 honor guards. Elias also plays a character in the past. Meanwhile, back in ancient Japan, the Turtles find April, who was being kept prisoner. They rescue her and flee back to the village, which is run by the rebels. We also see the introduction of Walker, an English weapons trader who wants to provide weapons to Lord Nobunaga for silver and silk, but then changes the cost to gold when he realises that the Turtles are the ones fighting on the opposite side. The Turtles have the task of defending the villagers whilst trying to make a replacement scepter so that they can get back to their own time, due to them losing theirs earlier on in the movie. This is probably regarded as the worst movie, although saying that, I can see where they have made an effort to bring us a better movie, but ultimately they failed. But before I tell you all the bad points, I'm going to try and concentrate on some of the good points. I'm going to try and be positive about this movie. First good point about this movie is that we actually see the Turtles actually using the weapons in this one. Not a lot, but it's we actually see it more than in the second one. Another good thing about this movie is that Casey Jones is back, but he's back in a really toned down version of his previous self from the first movie, really toned down. Corey Feldman returns as the voice of Donatello, which I actually like. Sets and costumes, not the actual turtle costumes mind you, the actual set costumes are actually quite good. Unfortunately, that is probably it for all the good things I can say about this movie. And now for the bad. First of all, the absence of Jim Henson's workshop is very, very noticeable. In this movie, a company called the All Effects Company took over from Jim Henson, and from the start you can tell the quality of these suits is without a doubt worse than any other that have come before in the Ninja Turtles 1 or Ninja Turtles 2. The bright colours just look off, they look shiny. They've got massive bulging eyes that roll around all over the place and they look quite freaky. They've got huge distracting teeth. Splinter also looked considerably worse than in the previous movies. The story is pretty weak. It was loosely based off a 2-part comic story that was no doubt superior than this movie. Another negative is that this movie version didn't include any characters from the comic books or the cartoons. They just simply seem to create their own. Like I said before, Casey Jones is back, but you won't see him wear his hockey mask and crack some skulls, and in this he is reduced to a glorified babysitter. Although we do see Elias Cortez play a different role in the past, it does not seem to be linked to Casey at all. Although saying that, there is a scene where April seems to recognise him and think it's Casey Jones for a split second, and I think there is also a scene where Raphael mentions that he looks like someone he knows, something like that. Like I said, I always presumed it was Casey Jones and he had some kind of ancient ancestor, and it would have been nice if they had maybe hinted to this or mentioned this, but they never did. They never mentioned this at all. The next movie was going to be called The Next Mutation. If that sounds familiar to you, that's because they get a TV series a few years down the line called The Next Mutation. But in this movie that was originally planned called The Next Mutation, the concept was that the Turtles were going to go through a further mutation, including Splinter, turning them into bigger creatures, bigger mutants, and would give them different abilities. Donatello was going to gain telekinetic abilities, but as a result he would have weaker eyesight, so he would have to wear goggles that helped him see. He also had a different bow that looked mechanical. Leo had a new ability to morph his skin into a chrome-like surface. Mikey would have the ability to project human features over his turtle appearance. And Raphael could morph into a raptor Raph, and he would hulk out and get sharp claws and sharp teeth. Splinter also would have had a similar ability where he could morph into a bigger rat mutant with massive claws and teeth and become like a hulking creature like Raphael. And there were also talks about introducing a 5th turtle named Kirby, after Jack Kirby, one of Peter and Kevin's heroes. And although this never happened, the 5th turtle would be introduced in a later project. And so this 4th Ninja Turtle movie never saw the light of day because of the failure of the 3rd. There are some movie trilogies out there that I just refuse to watch all the way through, The Godfather Part 3 being one of them, and also Alien 3. But when it comes to the Ninja Turtles, even though the 3rd one isn't quite as good as the first 2,
I still watch it because I do kind of like it.